everyone. Sorry for the delay. It appears my AirPods were out of charge, so it took a minute going with the old trusty headset. So let me know you can see me and hear me okay. Hopefully we're all working here. So let's get into it. Let's do a get pull here. Oh, I also restarted my Mac apparently. We'll fix that later. Oh wow, we got a lot of stuff here. Alright, so let's do this SSH key. Where are you? SSH key. There we are. Cool. Alright, let's not have to type in my passphrase all the time. And it sounds like my audio is a bit off. Are people... Let me know in the chat if you can hear me okay. How's it going? Yo, yo. Hopefully getting some weird feedback on my side. So as long as people can hear me okay, I think we're alright. But it might just be the headset rubbing. I haven't used this in a while, but it does work. It is effective. So let's jump in here. Let's close that. Is it me or are you quiet? Oh, okay, cool. Alright, cool. Alright, thanks everyone. Alright, let's get on it then. Git checkout -b int cast. Let's say http int cast. Alright, so this is one of the new branches I want to work on. A little quiet, but good. Oh, okay. That's not cool. Where's my eCam live stuff? Here we go. Let me see if I can make some adjustments. The mic. Let's bump this mic up a little bit. Maybe up to like 70. I'm getting feedback at 70. Let's go down to like 65. Alright, hopefully I turned myself up just a bit. Alright, let's get into the framework. And I'll show you what I want to add here, and then we'll kind of like test drive it out. Maybe. So I think, alright, cool. Everything sounds good. Let's get into it. Okay. I don't know if this interacts with input or not. Let's see. Is there like a Boolean on here? I always forget where Laravel puts this. I think it's on interacts with input. Oh, PHP Storm is indexing. So I'll explain this while PHP Storm is catching up with our speed of development here. If you're not familiar, in recent versions of Laravel, they added some, let's call them casts, if you will, on request data. So you can say something like request arrow Boolean, and it will give you a Boolean value back, like whether it's true or false, 1, yes, no. Perfect for like things like checkboxes and all sorts on your form validation. There's also some other fun, helpful ones like str or string, which actually gives you back a stringable instance, so you can call all the fun Laravel string object-oriented methods on, right? So I think those are pretty good, but I think there's an opportunity maybe for some more. For example, one for maybe int and one for maybe float. So I just thought it might be neat to add those to request, but then it also got me thinking the other day when I was working on the dynamic worker servers or whatever, spawning those up. There was something where I was using stringable and then I ended up casting that to an int. So maybe it makes sense to also put these on there as well. So I'm going to commit these, or I'm going to open PRs for these separately. I thought we could jump into the request quickly and just kind of do one here, and then maybe I'll go over to the stringables and do more, because the stringable right now doesn't have any. It just has toString. So let's take a look, and let me first of all find where this method is. So here's the example of a couple of these. So you can do string, str, or string, and it basically turns this into a stringable instance, right? There's a Boolean, there's a date, so you can basically parse this automatically as a date. There's an enum. There's all sorts of ones. There's a collection. There's all sorts of ones inside of here. But again, I think if you have kind of these primitive types, Boolean, for example, is the most primitive type. But if you have these helpful ones like date, why can't we have one for int, and also maybe one for like float as well, right? Maybe something comes across as 2.3 and you want to, you don't want that to be a string. All request data is a string, so it'd be nice to maybe auto parse that out as well, right? If you know that that value should be an integer, instead of getting it from the request as input or get or whatever param, whatever you use, and then calling int val or casting it or whatever, just like this method, it would be nice to maybe have that be retrieved as an integer automatically. So let me know what you think of that in the chat. I'll just kind of, again, stub these out kind of quickly. They're pretty darn straightforward, but we will kind of backfill some tests for this. So retrieve input as integer value, as n integer value. Thank you, PHP Storm. So we can say returns I don't really know why you need that. It's going to be pretty obvious from the implementation. I think that's helpful for the case of Boolean, where it kind of lets you know here are the ones that would be true. What's a truthy value, right? But as far as an integer is concerned, we're probably just going to straight up like int cast it, right? We're not really going to filter it as a Boolean because, again, we're not after all these additional things that represent a quote-unquote Boolean value. It's just like straight up, give me this thing as an integer, right? So we could kind of go so far as date if it's not filled or something along those lines. We could end up returning null. We don't necessarily want to return 0, I don't think. I don't know. Let me know what you think in the chat about that. I'm not sure. Also, let me know what you think about int versus integer. Obviously, string has str and string, but I feel like they have str as a nod to the str helper. The fact that this is called Boolean and not bool leads me more towards integer than int, but someone could always add an alias, I suppose, later. So I think I'm going to go with integer, but let me know if you think it should be something else. So they are passing in the default, so I feel like what we could do is if it's not filled, we would just straight up return we would straight up just return the default probably, right? Default's maybe just 0. So we could say it returns an int. And I don't even know if we need to do that, to be honest. Key probably should not be null. I don't know why that is allowed. That's strange. Key can't be null. You have to pass an integer in. It's a bit weird. When would you filter that? Anyway, whatever. This is basically, we'll add some test cases once we decide the way this works. That's why I'm not necessarily test driving this out immediately. You don't even really need this is not filled because input's going to kind of take care of that for us if it's not there. So I feel like we don't even need that. Again, we could test drive that later, but yeah, because the default would be 0, and if you had some weird thing in there, you're going to get that anyway. Maybe there's an argument to be made that if it's not an integer, we would use the default instead of int val making it 0. But again, we're starting to get a little bit weird there. Let's not make too many assumptions. So let's go ahead and make a similar one for float. And I just think pretty straightforward. We could float val that. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what I'm thinking there. You really would never pass in null. I don't know when you would pass in null. Do all these other ones take null? Yeah, they force you to pass in a key. So that's not right. All right, let me know. Yeah, let me know in the chat what you think about the name and this, and I'm going to go find where these tests are, and we'll kind of drive this out, and we'll do we'll kind of drive it out a little bit better based on the float value, or sorry, based on the default value and kind of how that gets handled here. So what is it not liking here? Missing parameter. Oh, that's just PHP Storm being pushy about types. We're okay. Although this is squigglied, so we've supposedly got an error in here somewhere. I don't know where. I'm going to close the chat so I got some more screen real estate. Alright, I think we're all good there. Let's go find this request test, maybe? HTTP request test, I think, is probably. Let's see if there's anything in here about a Boolean value. Yes, there is. Test Boolean method. Alright. Let's see what people are saying in the chat. Could you also perhaps add a base param since int value accepts that, defaults to base 10? Ooh. I suppose so. I'd probably put it at the end, similar to the time zone. If you saw, I think they kind of put that at the end. So I think if I were gonna do that, does it? Yeah, it does take a base. Does float as well? No, float's just straight up, you're a float. Yeah, I think you could do that. I mean, obviously, you could do that. But I think I would want to put it at the end instead of before the default. I still don't even know if I want to use default or not, to be honest. So I'm just trying to figure out when and how default's used. But I agree. I think we could backfill base pretty easily. But let's push these tests real fast. Let's get some test cases to kind of drive out what our actual requirements are. So let's say test integer method, and here let's pass in a whole bunch of like crazy ones and kind of see what ends up happening, right? So let's make our own, whoops. Yeah, we can just kind of pass all these test cases in as one, and I think that's going to make life a lot easier. So pretty straightforward. We can just do something like int here, and it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3. Raw int. We could do like 4, 5, 6, and then maybe we'll do something like I don't know here. We could do like 0 padded. This is kind of goofy, but we could do something like 0, 7, 8, 9 or something, a little goofy. And then we could do space padded, and it's like 1, 2, 3. I don't know. Or well, we probably shouldn't overlap numbers here. Let's overlap something else, like let's do like 901. We'll just go backwards. And then we probably want to do something that's like not a number, so like nan nan, and then something that's like mixed, maybe, of like 1, 0, and 8 or something. Or sorry, 1 A B or whatever. I think we could do something along these lines. Okay, so an int, let's change all these to integer, and let's change this to float here, just to avoid any overlaps, and I'm just going to make this an empty test for the time being. Okay, so it won't be assert true. These are going to end up being more like assert same. Ooh, underscore, yeah, that's a good one. Let's add an underscore. Not an M. How about a comma? There we go. Let's do underscored. So where would the underscore be? Would it be like 1 underscore that? Can you, oh, okay, you're right. I see what you're getting at. PHP 8 doesn't allow you to like space separate integers at like their comma marks or something instead. You can underscore separate into like large integers. Is that what you're getting at here? I don't know what int value does there. That's more of like a PHP thing, but yeah, let's throw it in here. I like it. Okay, so we just have an int, and we'll pass in a default here of like 0 just to make sure we know what's going on. The default is 0, so that's kind of not necessary. All right, and then here would be 4, 5, 6, not with a dot. And let's just make all these assert true. Assert same. Okay, so request, this is going to be raw int, and again, this doesn't matter because it all gets passed as a string anyway, but let's just kind of see what happens there. And then we have 0 padded, should end up being 7, 8 by the rules of the way that works, or PHP works. So let's say 0 padded, and then we have space padded, and then nan, let's just get these right before I keep messing them up. We have mixed, and we have underscore. And then let's just put a 0 in here for now, so PHP Storm's a bit happier. Okay, so our 0 padded should end up still being 901, I think. And, or well, stuff's going to get trimmed. Stuff's automatically trimmed in Laravel, so that's all irrelevant. All right, and then nan should end up being the default. So we're going to put 0 there, and then 1ab should be 1. And then let's put one more in here that's a little trickier. Like, well, not a number is already what we have. That's fine. So we would expect underscored to maybe, again, this might be based on int val, but we would expect that to potentially be 2000? I don't know about that. That one feels odd to me. Anyway, let's see what happens. I'm going to have to fire up Docker. While that's firing up and taking a good 10 seconds, I'm going to have some espresso. All right, let's see what people are saying in the chat. Yeah, with underscore. Yeah, Vincent, let's see what happens here. I honestly don't know what int val gives you when you use underscores in a string and call int val. That's going to be very interesting. But it sounds like maybe you know, and it sounds like it should work. So in which case, this would end up being 2000. Okay, by the way, I like the point you made about my talk in the last Shift newsletter, using a model for the data access is a cool idea. Yeah, oh, okay, was that, sorry, they all kind of, especially the lightning talks towards the end of the day, and I went to a viewing party, and they all kind of blended together, so apologies for not figuring out that it was your specific talk. But yeah, it was a great point. I've always made that point. I've had people tell me that point over the years in all sorts of different frameworks, like, you can use a model. It doesn't have to be backed by a database or like, you know, active record or whatever pattern, right? If something kind of, it's just like duck punching. Like if something looks like a duck and quacks like a duck, like it's a duck, right? So anyway, it's just one of those things that I would even go so far, again, as like I said in the newsletter, to not even go so far as to implement the repository pattern. Just put your find and create methods and whatever you had in your talk directly on the model, because they even lined up perfectly with the naming. So anyway, shift runner. Every time you open Docker, I groan. Yeah, you know what? Me too. But there's not really a good local alternative to give me all these various things, right? Like, I know people say, oh, homebrew, but you know what? Homebrew comes with its own effing pain. Like, you mess up homebrew and you're fucking like rebuilding your Mac like for a day. So, you know what? Docker takes, 30 seconds to spin up, but I'm in here, and if it breaks, I just shut it down. So, whatever. Okay, let's do vendor bin PHP unit. Let's copy this test class. And if these are really slow, I'll just filter down to that exact one. Cannot redeclare Boolean. Oh, did I not fix that? Is that why that's griping? Did I paste these like 6 times? I did paste them 6 times. Whoops. Let's try that again. That's where that red line was coming from. Okay, so failed asserting that 2 is identical to 2000. Okay, so that's exactly what I was talking about a minute ago, Vincent. I don't think that int val is going to respect that underscore, unfortunately. Um, I don't know. I don't know a way around that. Let's check this here for a second. I can't necessarily tinker because we're in the framework and not a Laravel app. But we could just do like php-r. Let's just see what happens when we do like int val. Make sure I'm not crazy here. So when we do int val2 underscore that, oops, we need to echo it. It helps when you echo it. Or let's var dump it, shall we? Oh, there's something else we need to do in our tests. Well, assert same is actually getting type, so we're good there. So yeah, see, it actually is PHP, and this is PHP 8.1, I think. It is 8.1, so that's actually PHP not kind of respecting those. There's an argument to be made. You could put an RFC in that says, hey, if you can write integers that way, then int val should handle integers that way that come in as strings. Now, of course, if I said int val and actually passed it an int, I would expect this to be 2000, and it is. One thing I'm curious about, I wonder if you straight int cast this, does it behave differently? Yeah, see, even if you int cast it, it of course is just doing int val anyway. So that's kind of a PHP thing. I get what you're after. You're welcome to PR this on top of it if you want to support that format. I don't think that's necessarily intuitive. That you would, again, you have to think about the context. The context here is request data. Is someone going to be passing a numeric value in a PHP underscored notation? I don't know. If your app supports that, hey, whatever, awesome. But I'm not feeling like that's necessarily something we mess with. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I just, yeah, I think we're in agreement with what Kai's saying. Like, I don't think, I just don't think that's something we would want to support. Now, again, I'll note it in the PR, but I don't think it makes sense for this method to return 2000 in this specific case. So anyway, everything else is passing here. So again, if there's some requirements beyond this underscore notation that people think here, please let me know. But I'm going to go ahead and move on to the float method here. So let's pull this down. Let's take out this underscored bit, and let's kind of fix these. So let's say something like, let's change our names here to float. Whoops, can't do that one. Let's change that to float and float, and we'll do something here like zero padded. Let's do a raw float at like 45.6, 1.23. Let's do space padded 90.1. We'll stick with not a number, and we'll do something silly here like 1.ab. I have no idea what float val is actually going to do there. Probably just 1.0, but we'll see what happens here. We probably should do like one more. Maybe like decimal only or something. Let's just see what happens with that one, right? Let's make sure I'm sure float val can handle this. Again, we're really just delegating to PHP, so we kind of just have to make our requirement be whatever PHP can do. Now, of course, we can expand upon that if someone considers that a bug, like the underscore notation. But I'll welcome those PRs later. I don't really spend a lot of time on that because honestly, like Taylor might not even want these in the framework. So let's just see if we can get the door open, and we'll kind of go from there. So let's get this one for decimal only, and let's kind of get these numbers right. So we got, that would be 1, 2, 3, 4. We got that float. This is going to be 0.6. This is going to be 0.78. I don't know if that 0 needs to be there. We're going to find out. 90.1, let's call that 0.0 because it's not a number and we should get the default. I should probably put in a different default here just for giggles. Mixed, we have the mixed, and that should probably be 1.0 as well. So we don't have an underscore notation there. Let's change this to float and kind of see where we are, and then I might, again, tweak these tests to do a better job with default. Oops. Let's go back to our actual tests, playing around with PHP there. Okay, so everything passes right away. I am a little curious if I put a 0 here, does it even matter? Probably not. It doesn't, so I am going to leave these to match kind of the test data. So we pretty much nailed, again, the way float val works here. Here's an interesting question. Can we do like scientific here? I don't even know how to write this. I never use this, but can you do like 1e to the 3? Like, what does that end up being? So let's do scientific notation is really what we're after there. Scientific notation. All right. And then this would be like 1e3. I mean, I think you can type that. Let's find out. I mean, it passes. We should probably have a test for it, right? I don't know. I don't know if I like it. But again, if we're just using float val, we have to kind of honor what it accepts. So I think we should kind of highlight that here. Okay, and then the last thing I want to do for both of these is unknown or unknown key or something, and let's pass in like some kind of default value. So we'll say like 123.456, and we'll make sure that it's 123.456. So first we're making sure that our method doesn't blow up when we ask for a key that doesn't exist, and then two, we're kind of testing that default value. So let's put this up here as well, and let's say integer, and let's just make this a big int. Sorry, need more coffee. 456. All right, cool. So these pass. Again, I think there's probably opportunity to change these methods a bit, but they are functioning with the requirements that we know of. So yeah, I mean, I think it's fine to just use the int val. It's a little bit of redundant to, you know, if again, you could add a guard clause that says if it's not filled, return default, and then you don't even really kind of mess with this, but why? You know, it works, it's streamlined, and we can very clearly see in this one-line method that we're calling int val and float val. So I think the only other thing you could argue here is maybe saying something like based on PHP's, you know, casting or something. I don't know, but again, I think it's pretty obvious from the one-line method. So I think we've got the tests here. We've got what we need. Let's shut Docker down for a minute just to get some CPU cycles back. Go away, Docker. I don't want to rate you. According to Haas, we would give you a 0. So, all right. So let's do a git add-p and just kind of take a look at what we've done here. Make sure we haven't messed up any formatting. That's why I like to copy previous methods. So we copied previous methods. We really just renamed it to integer, int val, and put in some defaults. This all looks good, styling-wise, and so forth. And then as far as functionality, we've tested that pretty well here with underscore notation, scientific notation, some of these boundary cases that I could think of. Again, if you think of more in the chat, let me know. But I think this is pretty good. I've got a double line break there, so let me go fix that real quick. This was in the HTTP request test. Too many line breaks. All right, let's fix that up. Good. All right, cool. So git. You know what? I might break those up. I might actually end up breaking that commit up. Let me just whip this so we can get to a different branch. I think what I'm going to do, though, is break that up into integer and float instead of putting them together so they're nice atomic commits. That way if Taylor's like, hey, integer cool, but float's a little weird with scientific notation, I don't think I want to go there, I can just back that off real easily. So I'll submit the PRs and stuff off stream because, again, I've talked about this before, but when you submit that PR, you really want to sell it. You want to have before-after examples. You want to kind of give a real-world example of why you're submitting this, why it has value. And, you know, you guys don't want to watch me type all that. So, All right, let's do a get checkout -b stringable casting, and let's break that off 9.x. Obviously I don't want my changes that I just made whip, so I just want to make sure that I get, again, if you pass that second branch name here, this 9.x, you basically say this is the branch I want to branch off of. So I don't want to branch off my previous branch, which is the default behavior. So let's go to stringable, and we're going to kind of do the same thing. So if we go down to stringable, right now, stringable has this toString. So, you know, if you're out here and you have like an str, and let's just say you have something like shift worker 02, and you know you do all this stuff like after last, you know, dash, and you want like the int val of that, right? Like that's kind of how I had to do it when I was parsing out this shift worker, right? And when I wanted the number of the worker out of some kind of string, so I could manipulate it all with string, which was really, really cool. But then I kind of had to like do this, and then I had to do, oh, that's what I had to do. This was the part that really started feeling ugly. I had to do, excuse me, like a toString on it, and then int valid, and it just felt weird to me that I was making it a string and then just making it an int. And so again, I think it would be pretty cool, in my opinion, to have like a toInteger here, right? Or a toBoolean or a toFloat. Maybe even a toDate based on that HTTP request stuff. I don't know if I can get to all those in this stream, but I think we could make, you know, again, pretty quickly a toInteger, a toFloat, and then we'll kind of go on from there. But we have all of this built in the request object, and so I just think, again, for that symmetry within the framework, that continuity, it'd be cool to just have this cast. I don't know. Let me know in the chat if you think this is valuable, but that felt so weird to me, having to say toString and then int valid. If I'm already casting it down to something, it'd be cool to kind of just get that object back immediately. So what I want to add here is again the very same thing here. So we can just do something like public function, or well, we can say get the underlying string value as an integer. There we go. And this would be int, and really we would say toInteger, and same darn thing we were doing before. This would just be int val on that value. And if it's not an int val, then, you know, 0, I guess. I don't know. Like, it's just what int val does. So, and again, Taylor might want to highlight that, you know, in the description. So I kind of leave it up to him to type those awesome cascading bits here. So we have this toInteger. Again, PHP Storm's going to gripe about the return type. That's okay. Let's go ahead and do toFloat. And then again, I think there's an opportunity maybe to do toBoolean, toDate, things like that. So, but let's write these. We already have them kind of available anyway. So let's go check that out. So we have stringable test. And where's our like toString? I don't think they probably test that directly because, you know, everything calls toString. So it probably isn't necessary because it gets tested through all these other things. So we'll just throw ours at the bottom. And we really don't even want to do that. Let's just take what we have here and paste that in, and crap, we got some nasties here. Let's get that cleaned up. I really like that about GitHub. I don't know if everyone uses GitHub that's watching, but I really like that about GitHub. When they're diff, when you copy something out of their git diff, it automatically knows not to give you, like, you know, the minuses and the pluses for, you know, the lines that have changed. So I've always thought that was pretty nice. Nice little DX there. All right, let's get that formatted correctly. There we go. And we no longer need the request, of course. We can just do all this inline. So let's see if we can fix these up. So what we would probably do here, or well, crap. Let's bring those back. I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this all in one. Let's see if I can clean these up a bit. What I would want to do is cut these out. Let's see if I can do this with some PHP unit magic. All right, let's cut that out. Let's cut this. And then let's go down here and we'll change that part to this. Ha 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 ha. Nailed it. All right. And then we would want to change kind of the way I'm putting stuff in here. Yeah, okay. Let's just redo this one. So this would really be, what do their tests look like up here? They just kind of make a this stringable, and then they call to whatever on it. So we could say this stringable, that thing, and then our to integer on it. There we go. Oh, that one got a little messed up, but the rest look good. So we'll say to integer, close that up, and let's get rid of this unknown key because it just doesn't really apply here. And then the raw int, I don't even know if that raw int one makes any sense, right? I mean, I guess you're passing in an int. Let's make sure you get an int back, but yeah, kind of silly. Let's go ahead and do the same thing down here for this. And again, if these pass, then I'll keep going and we'll go on to like Boolean and these other ones. But hopefully this has, again, hopefully this has a place within the framework. So let's cut that. Let's do that. Let's get back over to where we're going. Oh, I see why that one messed up now. Okay, because it's got like those dots in there. It's actually a raw value, so PHP Storm's skipping over it like in a weird way. So stringable, and then this would be to float. And let's get rid of that. And let's get rid of this. Okay, so again, this should work exactly the way we think. We're just to floating it. Again, anything you chain on stringable is irrelevant. The point is that when you finally call to float on a stringable instance, it's going to cast it. So again, there may be whatever I add after this, like my example of the dynamic worker name, it's irrelevant. It's always going to cast. So you can chain 100 methods in between there to manipulate that string, and this is going to work. So there's no reason to really make more on there. All right, let's see what people got going on. Nice multi-line. Yeah, I actually didn't know about that. So if you're using PHP Storm, a tip I picked up from Christoph is if you do one of my favorites, and I use it all the time now. But for me, on a Mac, I can do Option. I can press Option, and then I start like being able to select. Yeah. So if you press Option once, and then the second time you press Option, if you hold it down, you can actually start selecting multiple lines. You don't have to like do the Control-G trick or click it with your cursor like I used to do. You can actually just, again, hit Option, and then the second time hold it down, and as long as it's in a quick enough sequence, it works for you. So you got to do it pretty quick, but double tap, second tap, hold, and you can use your arrow keys to kind of move around and select multiple things. And from there, go nuts like I was doing. The other one that I do sometimes, again, just quickly, is if I highlight something, I can do Control-G and just keep pressing it until I get what I want. So I use that one pretty frequently. I knew about that one already, but the double Option or the double Alt tap, if you're on a different machine, is pretty cool. So let's go ahead and test drive out this Boolean one. We're moving pretty quick. What time is it? I got time. Let's go a bit farther here. Let's go back to that HTTP test, and let's copy this again. Test Boolean method. Oh, let's change this just real quick. Let's test to float. Again, I like to kind of honor the way the class looks. This is called test get. It doesn't say all the weird stuff like test float method. It just says the method name. So let's fix that up. All right, let's bring that in. We actually didn't need that, and we're gonna need to format this one a bit better. There we go. And then I shouldn't have brought in that request instance. Let's just clean that up before I forget about it. Pop! All right, cool. And then going all the way back down, let's copy, again, this same requirement, same specification for this Boolean method as request. Again, we don't want this to behave any different. If people are used to using that method, it's very easy to say, oh, it works just like this method. So let's honor that and kind of go from there. We'll even copy the PHP doc block from it, so it's nice and documented in the code as well. So let's use our fancy trick here again. So in this case, because I have this arrow, I would actually use my Control G here, and then I'm just going to start highlighting stuff the way I normally would, and then I can use Alt and Up to start selecting the thing that I care about. But in this case, it's a little ugly again because of those raw values, so I'm just going to pull that off and steal this instead. So let's change this to be those values that we put in there, and then again, because of those raw values, I'm gonna need, oh, did I miss one? With yes? What's with yes? Oh, was that their like fake one that doesn't exist? No, they have a yes. Did I miss that? I feel like I missed something, but whatever. All right, and then we actually would we leave these the same? I feel like I broke something here. What did I break? Let's see. I feel like whoa, hello. No, I don't want to browse Safari. I don't know what I just pressed there, but PHP Storm shot me to the moon. Okay, so we have false. Let's just compare these side by side real quick. We have false, true, 1, 0, on, and yes. I don't know where I duplicated a copy of something, or if with on, with yes. Oh, they have this some undefined key in there. I gotcha. They threw in kind of a special. Oh, they're actually out of order too. Oh my gosh, that's gross. Okay, we better double check these then. Okay, I assumed they were in the request order like the way I wrote my stuff, but they're not. That's very confusing. Okay, so let's finish fixing what we need to fix, and then we need to make sure our assertions are correct now that these are all a bit off. So this stringable, and then get our little toBoolean soon-to-be method, and then now let's make sure that these are right. So stringable false should be false, right? Stringable true should be true. 1 should be true. 0 should be false. On should be true. True. And then let's actually make this an off just for giggles. And let's make this a no. That way we're covering all known bases. Oh my god, I typed assert off. Hilarious. False. There we go. Okay, so let's just double check these. Stringable false is false. Let's start in order here so they're nice and paired. So stringable true is true. Stringable false is false. Stringable 1 is true, false. True for on, false for off, true for yes, false for no. So theoretically, these should all work. And as not to kind of imply that a string 1 versus a string 0 are different, let's just put that back. We can leave this one. That'll probably just get cast down to a 1 anyway. Yeah, I feel kind of weird passing the raw values in for booleans, but we'll throw that in just for giggles. Okay, so this should totally cover, even more so than that HTTP test, the way this works. So before or while Docker is firing back up, sorry Haas, let's go ahead and add this. So this is gonna be a float, and let's get back to that HTTP request class. Come on, Docker. Let's go to this interacts with input, and we're going to copy this Boolean method. I am breaking stuff. Docker is lagging. Boolean. There we are. Let's copy this sucker and get back to our stringable, and let's call this toBoolean, and let's just tweak this, get the underlying string value as a Boolean. Alright, and then just while we're here, that one's integer, this one is float. Alright, cool. Returns true when value is 1, true on and yes, otherwise false. Perfect. No reason for a default. Let's get rid of that, and there's no reason for a key. Let's get rid of that, and we simply return a bool, and in this case we are just, value. Alright, sweet stuff. Let's see how we're doing. Let's get back to Docker land. There you are. Let's get back to our stringable test. Let's close these other request classes. There's our stringable test. So if we're lucky, all this should just pass. So vendor, bin, PHP unit, boom. Yep, copied the wrong class. Let's get into the stringable test. That's what I'm after. Boom, there we go. All right, let's see, fingers crossed, have an exception. Test is class illuminate test support stringable object stub not found. That is unrelated to our work, but let's take a look at what's going on there, because I'd love to see it all be green. Stringable object stub. New stringable object stub. Oh, you know what this is? I see them do this in Laravel a lot. They'll make classes that are kind of in line to be used for test, and a lot of the times they put them in the test that's being used, but I bet you that another test uses this, and so when you run the entire test suite, it gets defined. But when you run an individual test, in this case this test, you actually have test pollution, because this object should really be a fixture or something that gets loaded in the PHP unit configuration. Anyway, getting off my horse for a second, if we go look for this class, just to prove what I'm talking about, I bet you it does exist somewhere in the massive framework code base in another test, and there it is. The support str test instead of support stringable test actually has that defined, to my point. So if you went back and you actually ran the whole test suite under test support, I bet you everything passes, because that class would end up being defined. And there you have it. So that proves that everything's good. It's a false failure there, simply because this being referenced is actually referenced in another class. While that didn't have anything to do with the stuff that we wrote, I actually get confused about this sometimes. str, I think this is kind of like collection and lazy collection. I feel like str and stringable are like copies of one another, but they actually are physical copies. I don't think they delegate. So what I mean by that is I'm wondering if underneath I need to put, do I also need to put stuff in str, right? I don't know. I always get a little confused there. So I don't think we do, because these are static and they're always kind of constantly passing the value around. But I don't know. The toString method that str, the facade, calls, or the service class calls, is in stringable. So as such, I would think we don't need tests here as well. We don't need to copy anything. But again, we'll see when I submit the PR. So, okay, we do have 10 minutes. I don't know if I'm going to get date done, but let's go look at the HTTP request, because again, if we're going to do it, let's just go all the way, right? Let's go look at, where is our request? There it is, and it interacts with input. Let's just kind of take a look at this date. We wouldn't need key. We would really just have format and time zone, and we would kind of just attempt to parse the date. using the value. I mean, this would be really just this only. Yeah. I see no reason why we couldn't add this. Then there's an argument. Do you add enum? Do you add, it starts getting crazy. Yeah, I mean, if you do toDate, I feel like you have to do toEnum as well, but I might leave that for someone a little more enum oriented than me. I don't use enums a whole lot necessarily. I'm still kind of old school and use class constants. They definitely have value. I don't mean to say that I wouldn't use them. I just haven't. I think toDate's a good one. I mean, you're potentially parsing dates more so than you would be like parsing out integers or anything. I think the Boolean one's probably a good one as well. The two integer and two float are really just, again, for completeness. But date, I could totally see you messing with a date string to get the date out and then loving to have just a toDate directly on it. I think that would be pretty cool. So let's do it. I'll copy the test over later, but let's just kind of bring over the implementation for now. So let's bring this down. I guess go ahead and bring in the date facade. That makes sense. And then we can kind of copy the same thing. We can say get the underlying string value as a carbon instance. We're going to return carbon or null. We wouldn't pass in a key, but we will pass in format and time zone. And we don't need any of that. And this just becomes this value. And theoretically this all works, so we can go take the same old toDate. Oh, wow, is that not tested? It's got to be tested. Come on. There it is. All right. Test date. Oh, test date method. They use that method naming. Again, I don't know if I'll get this to pass immediately, but let's bring this over real quick, and I'll kind of clean it up. Let's not do request, just carbon. Okay, these are a little prettier. Carbon current. Date as null. Okay, so we could probably start cleaning these up to be, of course, this arrow stringable, and then on the other side of that, like a toDate. But that actually, this is going to need a little more. I don't think I'll be able to clean this up as fancily as last time. So we'll say toDate, and we'll say toDate. Why doesn't it like my toDate? Method toDate not found on stringable. Did I put it on the wrong class? Or did I not call it toDate? I probably didn't call it toDate, did I? Stringable. Nope, I didn't. toDate. There we go. Okay, so we don't pass anything in there. Here we would say toDate. And then this becomes toDate, I think. And then this would become toDate. Why doesn't... Oh, okay, yeah. All right. And then these two are toDate. Wow. Okay, crazy. Okay, so now we need to bring over the proper as nulls, as date time, all that stuff. So let's bring this over. Okay, so we have an as date time here. Let's bring that over. All right. We've got a what do you call this? Timestamp. Timestamp is the word I'm looking for. All right, as time zone. Okay, fine. And then just as a simple date, we would say toDate is same day as current. All right, cool. And then we got a time. That's interesting. You don't have to pass any kind of format here that says it's the time, but I guess that's just Carbon doing its thing. So let's cut all that out. I still got Docker up and running. So provided I don't have any syntax errors, I should be able to run this again and everything would be green, theoretically. Nope. Failed to parse time string as null at position A. Okay, so what did I break here? Facades, date factory, stringable 1163. Stringable 1118. All right, let's take a peek at this. 1118. Oh, of course, it doesn't even exist. Okay, so not a date, and we don't even need the other one. All right, let's see if this works. All right, still one. Could not parse not a date. Failed to parse time string not a date. Why would that be? Failed to parse time string not a date at position 0 in. The time zone could not be found in the database. That is very strange. Is null. Format should be null, right? We're not passing in a format. Format's null, so we try to parse it with null. You shouldn't be able to parse that. Does this throw an exception? It's not supposed to throw an exception. I don't think so anyway. Why would that work in the other code but not ours? Okay, do not disturb. Take it easy. I'm at time. The Mac OS is telling me you're done. Okay, let's take a quick peek at this. Samuel, what about Y and N? Oh, yeah. Again, yeah. I'll look at this to-date thing kind of off stream. Something a bit odd is there. Maybe that's throwing something that's not, or maybe maybe that's an acceptable bubbling up of the issue, but it's interesting that the other request test doesn't fail. So I'll hack that one piece out. But let's answer some of these questions in the chat, and then I'll shut it down. Vincent and Y and N. Yeah, the Boolean one definitely, in my opinion, I agree, should accept Y and N as true and false. I'm just mimicking what the HTTP request does currently. I don't want to change that specification or requirement at this time, but I think that's perfectly an acceptable PR, especially if this gets merged, to add that to both. But it is using PHP underlying, and as such, it might already accept that and it's just not tested or documented, or that would need to be added. So again, feel free to PR that. Samuel, yes, request enum does exist. I'm just not going to add it to stringable. Again, I'll leave that up to someone else for a PR. So with that said, yeah, I think this is pretty good. I'll figure out why this one's being annoying, but in the meantime, let's just comment that out, because I feel like that's just Carbon, a misunderstanding of Carbon on my part. So I'll take a closer look. Hopefully these pass, though. Let's see. And they do. Okay. So the only thing that I need to mess with is, again, if Carbon parses something that can't be parsed, why is that throwing an error in this case, but not the HTTP request? I think that's because it had that special is filled check. So we just need to kind of see, if you pass this thing gibberish, can Carbon handle this kind of a little bit better? Maybe I need to try catch it. Maybe I should allow the error to bubble up. I don't know. I don't know what's the best case scenario in this thing. Part of me feels like having the error bubble up to the user, if they tried to call to-date on something that couldn't be parsed, like, they should probably know that. So maybe that's something I don't fix and I just write an extra test for and expect an exception. I'm not sure. So again, I'll mess with that off stream and maybe bounce it off Taylor and team to see what they think is the best thing to do in that scenario. But I think we got pretty far here. So I was able to add all and more. I didn't even expect to add to-date on Stringable. So I'll push PRs across for this and post them on Twitter, so feel free to give them a thumbs up, thumbs down, add some more comments there. Vincent, Samuel, you guys had some good comments, so throw them there and see what people think and make some of the PRs yourself. So cool. See you all next week.